You won't believe what just happened. Because nobody saw this coming. Not the fans, not the insiders, not even the people closest to him. What started as a quiet legal battle behind closed doors has now exploded into one of the most shocking moments in hip-hop history. We're talking about a situation so intense, so unexpected, that fans are literally arguing online about whether this is even real, or if it's the biggest industry setup we've ever witnessed. Sources are claiming that UMG just made a final decision in a lawsuit that has been building pressure for months. And somehow, Drake is at the center of it all. But here's where it gets even crazier. People aren't just reacting to Drake. Now J. Cole's name is being dragged into the chaos too, and fans are confused, divided, and honestly, furious. Behind the scenes, emotions ran high. Insiders say heated conversations turned into full-blown confrontations. Contracts were allegedly pulled up, voices were raised, and relationships that once looked unbreakable started cracking right in front of everyone. One insider even said, "This wasn't business anymore. It got personal real fast." And just when you think it couldn't get worse, the reactions started pouring in. Fans are shocked. Some are defending Drake like never before, while others are saying this might finally be the moment everything catches up to him. Meanwhile, J. Cole's silence? That's making things even more suspicious. So what really happened in that final lawsuit update? Why are people suddenly turning on two of the biggest names in rap? And how did this situation spiral so far out of control that even industry veterans are calling it unprecedented? But stay locked in, because this story is about to take a turn nobody is ready for. The situation didn't explode overnight. It built up slowly, quietly, like pressure inside a sealed room until something had to break. According to multiple insiders, the tension between Drake and UMG had been brewing for months before anyone outside the inner circle even noticed. At first, it looked like standard business disagreements. Contracts, royalties, ownership percentages, the kind of things fans usually never hear about. But behind those closed doors, emotions were already running high, and people close to the situation say it stopped being just business a long time ago. One source claimed that Drake had been pushing hard for more control over his masters and future releases, especially after seeing how other artists were moving independently and winning. He felt like he earned that power, the insider revealed. After everything he's done for the label, he expected respect, not resistance. But UMG executives reportedly didn't see it the same way. From their perspective, Drake was still tied into agreements that couldn't just be rewritten overnight. And that's when the tone of the conversations started shifting. What began as negotiations quickly turned into disagreements, and those disagreements turned into arguments. People in the room described moments where voices were raised, tables were hit, and lawyers had to step in just to keep things from going too far. One insider even said, "You could feel it in the air, like something bad was about to happen." And then came the lawsuit, a move that shocked even those who were close to Drake. The lawsuit itself wasn't just about money. It was about control, influence, and what Drake believed was a breach of understanding between him and the label that helped build his empire. He reportedly felt boxed in, restricted, like decisions were being made without his full approval. On the other side, UMG allegedly felt blindsided. To them, this wasn't just a disagreement, it was a direct challenge. As news of the legal battle began leaking out, fans were confused. Some didn't even believe it at first. Drake, the same artist who had been synonymous with dominance and consistency, now caught in a legal war with one of the biggest music companies in the world? It didn't add up. But then more details started surfacing, and suddenly, everything felt real. Maybe too real. And just when people thought the situation couldn't get any more complicated, another name quietly entered the conversation: J. Cole. At first, it was just whispers. People noticed he wasn't speaking on the situation, not publicly, not even subtly. And in an industry where silence often speaks louder than words, that silence raised eyebrows. Fans began speculating. Was he staying neutral? Was he choosing sides behind the scenes? Or was he somehow more involved than anyone realized? One alleged insider dropped a statement that sent social media into chaos. There were conversations involving more than just Drake and UMG, and not everyone walked away clean. That single line was enough to spark theories across the internet. Suddenly, fans weren't just watching a legal battle, they were watching what felt like the unraveling of relationships that had been built over years. Meanwhile, inside Drake's camp, the mood was described as tense and unpredictable. Some team members were urging him to fight harder, to stand his ground no matter the cost. Others were warning him that this could damage his legacy if it went too far. He's not just fighting a contract, one source said. He's fighting the system, and that never ends quietly. As days turned into weeks, the lawsuit escalated. Documents were reportedly filed, counter-arguments prepared, and both sides began positioning themselves for what looked like a final showdown. The industry started paying attention. Artists, producers, executives, everyone was watching, but very few were speaking. And that silence? It made everything feel even heavier. Fans are shocked, divided, and emotionally invested like never before. Some believe Drake is finally standing up for himself. Others think he may have miscalculated this time. And with J. Cole's name continuing to circulate in the background, the tension is only growing stronger. Because now, this isn't just about contracts anymore. It's about loyalty, power, and a truth that hasn't fully come out yet. And if what insiders are hinting at is even partially real, then what happens next could change everything people thought they knew about the industry. As the lawsuit moved deeper into serious territory, the atmosphere around Drake began to shift in a way that even longtime fans could feel. This wasn't the confident, untouchable energy people were used to seeing. Behind the scenes, sources described a man who was frustrated, calculated, and at times visibly overwhelmed by how quickly things were spiraling. Meetings that were supposed to bring clarity only added more tension, and every new legal document seemed to open another layer of conflict rather than resolve it. One insider revealed that a crucial meeting between Drake's legal team and UMG executives turned into what they called a breaking point moment. What was expected to be a structured negotiation reportedly became a heated exchange filled with accusations and emotional reactions. There was a moment where everything just stopped feeling professional, the source said. It felt like years of unspoken issues were finally coming out all at once. Allegedly, Drake questioned decisions made by the label regarding his releases and hinting that certain moves were deliberately limiting his reach. UMG representatives, however, pushed back strongly, insisting that every decision had been strategic and agreed upon. That's when things took a dramatic turn. According to reports circulating among insiders, UMG's legal team introduced documents that caught Drake's side completely off guard. These documents allegedly outlined clauses and prior agreements that painted a very different picture of the situation, one that suggested Drake had more obligations than he was publicly acknowledging. The room reportedly went quiet. You could see it on his face, one witness claimed. He didn't expect that level of detail to come out. As news of this moment leaked, fans were shocked. Social media exploded with debates, with some accusing UMG of playing dirty, or while others began questioning whether Drake had underestimated the situation. Emotions ran high across the fan base. Supporters flooded timelines defending him, saying the industry has always tried to control artists. Critics, on the other hand, argued that this might be the consequences of decisions made long ago. But just when the narrative seemed to settle into a predictable battle between artist and label, J. Cole's name came back into the spotlight. And this time, it hit harder. A rumor began spreading that J. Cole had been indirectly involved in discussions related to the situation, not as a direct participant in the lawsuit, but as someone whose position in the industry may have influenced certain decisions. The details were unclear, but that didn't stop the internet from reacting. Fans were confused, and honestly, a little hurt. Cole had always been seen as someone who stayed out of drama, someone who moved differently from the rest. So, when his name started appearing in connection with this controversy, people didn't know what to think. "Why is Cole even in this?" one fan posted. "This doesn't feel right." Others speculated that his silence might mean more than anyone realized. Behind closed doors, the alleged tension between Drake and those around him continued to grow. Some members of his inner circle reportedly began questioning the strategy being used in the lawsuit. There were disagreements within his own team, a source claimed. Not everyone agreed on how far this should go. That internal conflict only added more pressure to an already intense situation. Meanwhile, UMG appeared calm on the surface, but insiders say their confidence was anything but accidental. The label reportedly believed they had a strong case, and that belief showed in how they handled the situation publicly, by saying very little. That silence created an unsettling contrast. While Drake's side seemed emotionally charged and reactive, UMG's approach felt controlled and deliberate. As the legal battle edged closer to what many believed would be a final decision, the stakes became clearer than ever. This wasn't just about winning or losing anymore. It was about reputation, legacy, and control over a career that had defined an entire era of music. People inside the industry began quietly choosing sides, even if they never said it out loud. Fans are still shocked, trying to piece together what's real and what's speculation. Some believe Drake is being pushed into a corner. Others think this situation might reveal truths that have been hidden for years. And with J. Cole's name still lingering in the conversation, the uncertainty continues to grow. Because at this point, nothing feels simple anymore. Every detail, every silence, every reaction seems to carry weight. And the closer this situation gets to its final outcome, the more it feels like something much bigger is about to be revealed. Something that could change how people see not just Drake, but the entire system he's been a part of. As the situation edged closer to a final ruling, the pressure surrounding Drake reached a level that insiders described as unlike anything they had ever seen before. This wasn't just legal stress anymore. It was emotional, psychological, and deeply personal. People close to him began noticing changes in his behavior. He was reportedly more quiet than usual, more calculated in what he said, and far more selective about who he allowed into his circle. He knew something big was coming, one source said, and he was preparing for impact. At the same time, the industry itself began reacting in subtle but telling ways. Artists who once openly supported Drake suddenly went silent. Collaborations that were rumored to be dropping soon were quietly delayed. Even producers who had worked closely with him in the past started keeping their distance, at least publicly. Fans picked up on these shifts almost immediately. "Why does it feel like everyone is stepping back?" one user wrote. And honestly, that question started echoing everywhere. Then came a moment that completely changed the tone of everything. According to multiple insiders, a private call between Drake and a high-ranking UMG executive didn't go as planned, and it may have been the final straw. The conversation reportedly started calm, but quickly escalated into a heated exchange. Voices were raised, accusations were thrown, and at one point, Drake allegedly said, "If this is how it ends, then let it end loud." That line alone was enough to send chills through those who later heard about it. What happened next is where things became even more intense. Leaked information suggested that UMG was no longer interested in negotiating. Instead, they were preparing to make a decisive move based on the outcome of the lawsuit. And that decision, according to insiders, would not only affect Drake's current situation, but also his future in ways no one had anticipated. This wasn't just about settling a dispute anymore, one source explained. It was about setting an example. As this information spread, fans were shocked and emotions ran high across every platform. Some believed Drake was being targeted, that the system was trying to humble one of its biggest stars. Others argued that this might be the result of a power struggle that had gone too far. Either way, the uncertainty created a wave of tension that felt impossible to ignore. And then, unexpectedly, J. Cole's name returned to the center of the storm. But this time, it wasn't just speculation. A leaked message, allegedly from someone connected to the situation, hinted that J. Cole had been approached at some point during the earlier stages of the conflict. The purpose of that approach remains unclear, but the implication alone was enough to divide fans instantly. Reactions poured in from every direction. Some fans defended J. Cole, insisting that he had nothing to do with the situation and was simply being dragged into unnecessary drama. Others weren't so sure. Silence can mean a lot, one comment read. And right now, his silence is loud. The narrative began shifting again, turning what was once a two-sided conflict into something much more complicated. Meanwhile, inside Drake's camp, the tension reportedly reached its peak. Disagreements within his team became harder to ignore. Some members were pushing for a more aggressive stance, encouraging him to expose everything and fight back publicly. Others urged caution, warning that escalating things further could lead to consequences that couldn't be reversed. It felt like everyone was on edge, a source shared. No one knew what the right move was anymore. UMG, on the other hand, remained composed. Their strategy appeared clear: stay quiet, stay firm, and let the legal process speak for itself. But insiders suggest that behind that calm exterior was a calculated plan that had been building for a long time. They weren't reacting, one person said. They were executing. As the final decision loomed closer, the entire industry seemed to hold its breath. Every move, every rumor, every small detail became a topic of intense discussion. Fans are shocked, divided, and emotionally invested at a level rarely seen before. Some are standing firmly with Drake, believing he's fighting for something bigger than himself. Others are beginning to question whether this situation might reveal sides of the story that have never been told. Because now, it's no longer just about contracts or disagreements. It's about power, loyalty, and the consequences of challenging a system that few have ever dared to confront this directly. And with J. Cole's presence still lingering in the background, the tension continues to build in a way that feels almost impossible to predict. Something is about to give, and when it does, it won't just affect the people involved. It's going to shake the entire industry. As the final ruling day arrived, the energy across the industry felt heavy, almost unreal, like everyone knew they were about to witness something historic. Insiders described the atmosphere as tense and silent, and with phones buzzing nonstop and private conversations happening behind closed doors. Drake, who had built a career on confidence and control, was now standing at a moment where everything seemed uncertain. Those close to him said he remained calm on the outside, but internally, the pressure was undeniable. He wasn't panicking, one source explained, but you could tell he understood the weight of what was about to happen. The courtroom itself was described as controlled, but emotionally charged. Legal teams on both sides were prepared, focused, and ready to present their final arguments. UMG's representatives reportedly came in with a clear strategy, presenting their case in a calm, structured manner that emphasized agreements, obligations, and what they described as a consistent pattern of misunderstanding from Drake's side. On the other hand, Drake's legal team leaned into the emotional aspect of the situation, arguing that the issue went beyond paperwork, that it was about fairness, creative freedom, and the evolving nature of an artist's role in the industry. At one point during the proceedings, a moment occurred that quickly became the center of attention. According to insiders, Drake himself spoke briefly, and what he said left the room completely still. "I gave everything to this," he reportedly stated. "If this is how it ends, then at least let the truth be heard." That statement alone carried a weight that extended far beyond the courtroom. It wasn't just a defense. It felt like a reflection of everything he had built over the years. But then came the decision. And this is where everything shifted. Reports began circulating that UMG had officially moved to cut ties with Drake following the outcome of the lawsuit. The exact legal wording was complex, but the message felt simple and direct. This chapter was closing, and not in the way many had expected. The news spread rapidly, and within minutes, social media was flooded with reactions. Fans are shocked. Some refuse to believe it, calling it impossible for an artist of Drake's level to face such a situation. Others reacted with anger, questioning the fairness of the decision and what it meant for artists moving forward. Emotions ran high, with debates turning into arguments across every platform. "This doesn't make sense," one fan wrote. "How do you just cut off someone who shaped an entire era?" Meanwhile, our critics began speaking up as well, suggesting that this might be the result of a long-standing conflict finally reaching its breaking point. And just when it seemed like the story had reached its peak, J. Cole's name resurfaced once again, this time in a way that made everything even more complicated. A new wave of speculation suggested that J. Cole had been aware of certain developments earlier than most people, though there was no clear confirmation of his involvement. Still, that didn't stop fans from reacting. The community became divided almost instantly. Some defended him, saying he had every right to stay out of the situation. Others questioned why he hadn't spoken up, especially given his influence and reputation. Behind the scenes, the emotional impact of the decision began to settle in. Drake's inner circle reportedly reacted in different ways. Some were frustrated, feeling that the outcome didn't reflect the full story. Others were more reflective, recognizing that this moment, as difficult as it was, might mark the beginning of something new. "It's not the end," one source said quietly, "but it's definitely a turning point." Meanwhile, the industry itself began adjusting to this new reality. Conversations started shifting toward what this meant for the future of artist-label relationships. Executives, artists, and insiders all seemed to be processing the situation in real time, trying to understand how something this major had unfolded so publicly and so intensely. Fans are still trying to make sense of it all. The reactions continue to pour in, with opinions changing by the hour. Some see this as a loss, not others as a lesson, and a few as a moment that could redefine the entire system. One thing is certain: nothing feels the same anymore. Because what just happened wasn't just a legal decision, it was a moment that exposed deeper tensions, raised bigger questions, and left a story that still feels unfinished. And as the dust begins to settle, one question remains in everyone's mind: what happens next? And now it's your turn to speak on this. Because this situation is far from over, and honestly, it might just be getting started. You've seen how everything unfolded, from the tension behind the scenes to that final decision that has the entire industry shaken. Fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and the lines are clearly being drawn. So what do you think really happened here? Was Drake standing up for his rights and got pushed out by a system that didn't want to lose control? Or did things go too far behind the scenes, leading to consequences we're only beginning to understand? And what about J. Cole? Do you think his silence means nothing? Or is there more to that story that hasn't come out yet? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, because the debate is getting intense and your voice matters more than ever. I want to know where you stand on this. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more real mixed stories that hit deep and keep you questioning everything, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Because trust me, this story isn't finished.